3, 2, 1.
Everybody, Coach Ron Nash, GHN, and these are the Coach Ron talk, like the TED Talk conversation with Coach Ron. And I have four. I have four guests, but three of them are special guests. Aaron Kimmick, AIML, former VP of Engineering Nokia, currently at Amazon as a leader. Kadesh Singh, former A&D, product biz dev, cloud leader, currently working on another project that we're going to tell you about later on. And Josh Liu over at Amazon, data science leader. And collectively, what we're discussing today is some of the implications around this new conversation called AI. Has anybody heard of that? Of course you have. It's not that new, except that the world's now starting to focus in on it. One of the things I thought would be fun is to discuss an article I saw recently and just kind of talk openly around it with my friends. So Yahoo Finance, IBM CEO who plans hiring pause for 7,800 jobs due to AI, says the world will be worse without technology. Otherwise, quality of life is going to fail. Arvind Krishna thinks AI's ability to increase worker productivity is a solution for a vexing problem faced by many developed countries, shrinking workforces. This is a loaded topic. There's a lot going on around it. There are a lot of fears around AI taking people's jobs. There are a lot of fears about AI taking over. We're going to explore all kinds of things like that. That just as a preface, one of the things I thought would be fun is just to fire a few questions off to my group of friends here. And I will open it up with this question. Obviously, over the next 5 to 10 years, there will be an effect on this technology because I use it now. Between Google Bard and ChatGPT, I have them open. I use Grammarly. I use Fireflies.ai. So I'm entrenched in this, and it's helping create a more productive, more effective work environment for me as a small business. Next 5 to 10 years, how do you see AI affecting the workforce? Anybody?
Major corporations, the impact will be different from small business, like you mentioned. I think the impact, depending on the industry, it will improve certain industry that, especially for the companies like your Amazon, etc., who are building the foundational things that's needed for AI processing, right? The chips, the data centers, the softwares, the framework for that. So those companies will benefit, but only a selective, I guess, called group of people within those. But I think what I'm worried about is for the industry that automation will replace a swath of the jobs, right? There are people who, if they're not, really pushing forward, learning different things, how to interact with AI, their job will be replaced by AI. I think that's probably the most scary part for the general large corporations.
I think what happened was with the age of the computer science, internet and whatnot, and we were able to collect massive amounts of data and store the data. That democratized the information or data. So the more of it, so people got more intelligent and they can focus on the more higher up cognitive tasks. I think what is changing or going to change with AI is, and by the way, when we say AI, it's the umbrella term. We should, I think we usually focus on or end up talking about the generative AI, which is the latest old ChatGPT related stuff. Now, that part of the AI is going to augment people on the cognitive tasks. So that's something that we never had. And we always thought that, well, data is there, but all the cognition and reasoning with the data is up to humans. But now AI is going to be a great helper there. Now, what is going to happen for the jobs is people who play with the data, reason with the data, will get leverage from the AI, and people who don't will fall behind. And it sometimes, usually in these discussions, the question is put forward that AI versus human race. And I think it will be a race between the human with AI and other humans. And humans with AI has the upper edge.
That's a strong, really interesting point. It's almost like enhanced humans, except you don't have to have chipping. But hey, what do you have? Any thoughts on this?
Well, I think it all depends on the different industry that Cha pointed out and even Adam pointed out. In my opinion, actually, AI is, and all technologies that have come before AI is a good thing for the human race. Even before, before when cars came, we thought that, horses will be obsolete actually. So it's just a evolution of technology. Uh, in my opinion, what's going to happen going forward is that a lot of these AI based solutions will get integrated as part of the broader offering. And ultimately, as we think about businesses, the whole idea of business is to serve humanity, right? So what AI would do is allow businesses to serve humanity in a more personal way, in a more deliberate way, right? So I think what you'll start seeing is learning will get personalized. Hospitality will get personalized. When people are offered food choices, it will get personalized, and you'll go from a community-based thinking to a more individual-based thinking, right? So ultimately, I believe that AI will help us reach our true potential of living a more enriched life. And in general, from a workforce perspective, I do believe that AI would help us enhance our lives. We don't have to work, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. Actually, probably human beings will be able to work more creatively. And, maybe only in 3 or 4 days, we'll be able to do more than we currently do. Because, if you look at our work, the way we work today, 60-70% is just, bullshit work that we do, right? So I think that's what AI is going to change. It's going to be uncomfortable in the beginning for anyone who just likes busy work to realize that, you can be smart and productive in a short amount of time. So I think it's going to be quite transformational for the human race, right? Because ultimately we'll have more time to put on ourselves. So we have to just figure out how best to use it.
It's interesting because, what I'm hearing is clearly it will help some people who adapt, as Jas said, and as the other have said. And then what you're saying, it certainly, it's helping me already. I'm a fan of all of this stuff.
Yep.
However, what kind of skills will the people who adapt, what kinds of skills will people need to be successful in an AI-driven workplace? And I think, touching on the types of jobs, certain types of jobs will most likely go away. What kinds of skills will people have in the future in order to really leverage AI?
Okay, so maybe I'll go first in this case, right? So I have the luxury of having 2 kids, right? They're both teenagers, and the way I do search and the way they do search is very different, right? So basically, I still go and type into Google to do search, and actually, my kids, they have conversations with their phone, and the phone talks back to them and gives them results, right? So what I'm seeing is that going forward, people who will benefit from AI, they will have to be more cognitive about it. They'll have to use more creativity, because that's ultimately, what human beings differentiation is, that we have imagination, we can think, and we can create new worlds around us. So I believe that that's where it will become very focused on using your creativity. In terms of doing mundane tasks like, writing code and debugging code, probably those things will get replaced or will get accentuated. So I believe that engineering science will always be there, but it will be all around multiplying engineering with creativity, which is a new art that everyone will have to learn, right? Human beings are not used to being taught how to be creative, right? We like to we are task oriented, right? Everybody just wants to have a task, do a project and get it done with. I think this is going to change the way we need to start thinking about how we work.
Interesting. Aaron, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I have a little bit of general. I want to generalize this topic of how people can take advantage of AI, because as I said earlier, there is this generative AI where the large language models are used. We are all impressed, and that's super interesting topic. And more than half of the industry is always talking about that. And there is I don't know of a better word, maybe the classical AI, the more machine learning or neural networks type of things. So there's a lot to be taken advantage there too. But in terms of people and skills and what the organizations can do, in the classical AI, or not talking about the generative AI part, if the business requires predicting something based on some data, that's one course of business. And it's a big business. A lot of companies are taking advantage of it. And those kind of, the skill set is typically the data science, AI skill set, or at least understanding of what the algorithms are doing and what is the advantage and disadvantage of those in terms of explainability of the predictions. That's a lot of data science related work is going on there. Now, in the generative AI space, still that applies if you are the one building the large language models. It is a deep down data science technique, obviously. But I think there is yet to be new skills that we need to understand and articulate. It's about how do I use that? How do I take advantage of this thing? I have seen a video of generative AI being used as an assistant or peer coding for a developer doing the rudimentary tasks, where the developer can focus on the higher up cognitive functions of developing something. That's a new way of interacting with AI. So if you're a developer, take advantage of that. But it requires a different skill set interaction with it. Or if you are authoring an article or planning to write down something, and generative AI is enormously helpful there. And none of these will require to be an expert in data science. I think this is where we are heading to, where we are getting to.
I think for the skill, technical skill probably still needed, right? But it will be different kind of technical skill. But I feel it's more for the people who pay attention to people's needs, pain points, problems, and understand how to create things that can help people solve the problem. I think those skills are probably more critical, right? It's more of you're integrating different technologies now to solve a problem. It just become easier to do that. So if people just focus on the problem and to be solved, not the technology behind it, then you just go learn a technology or integrate different technologies. It's almost like a low-code solution, replace some of the things we built, right? It's never going to replace your Google or Facebook, but for a lot of problems, you could probably piece together all those things collectively and solve it easier. I think that's where like a Gen AI type of enabled things will help make it easier.
Let me throw this out here kind of in the direction, Aaron, you touched a little bit on it. Ja, from a data perspective, AI is obviously super heavy data driven, but let's kind of touch on what are some of how does data science work in order to ensure the ethical responsibility for this industry? I mean, and obviously it's kind of like the Wild West now, but any thoughts around that at all?
I don't know. I think that's a tricky thing. Right now, I think there's a mad rush for all kinds of data, right? Quality data that's out there. And the data that companies start locking their data behind paywalls or changing their term of service for it. So I think that's one thing. It's like the availability of data, quality data. I don't know. I think there seems like there's a trend to go be decreased, right? That you have to pay for those data. But from ethical standpoint, how to use AI, I think it's more for the companies that they need to think about the implication of what they deploy. I think some companies are doing that. Right? OpenAI is trying to start that conversation, whether it's for publicity purpose or to actually really thinking about it. But this is good, right? But then the government need to also step in some sense. I think it's probably a red flag to say governments step in, right? But there are certain things that we do need have someone to look out for. I would say the damage to the potential to the larger society. I think AI would leave a lot of people behind, right? Even in the past, right? A horse car replacement, but there's a job introduced to fix cars, to build cars, right? To oil, right? There's whole industry being set up for that. Now with the AI, I don't know, but what is the replacement industry is going to generate? Is it going to generate enough job for the billions of people? If not, I think the bigger problem, especially on the ethical use, is more of it's going to rewrite the social contract, right? Between people and people and company, people and government, right? If we're not careful, then it's a very it'll get pretty messy pretty quickly.
I think Joe pointed out a pretty interesting conversation, right? And in fact, if you're looking at politics, right, and now we're diverting the topic, but even in the last election and one before that, there was always talk about minimum, what do you call it? I forget that term. It's called minimum salary. Right. So even if you are not working, you will be given a minimum salary to contribute back to society, or UBI, actually. Thank you. And I think that makes a lot of sense in my opinion, because ultimately, the way I think about this, the whole idea around technology is to serve human beings. we are going through an interesting transformation. We are just about to touch. We already crossed 7 billion. We are about to touch 8 billion, right? And eventually, I think the human race will have to think about how to slow down a little bit, right? And just start focusing more on quality of life. I believe this AI is definitely going to help us achieve a much higher quality of life. The transformation will be challenging, but I don't see it going to be a pretty big problem. I don't see that to be the case actually. I think the transformation will be smooth. And the reason I'm saying this is, I mean, I went back home to India, as I was telling you. Pretty much everyone over there, people of all age group now use social media, right? Never in my wildest imagination I would have thought, like, grandparents using social media so often, and the use of YouTube or WhatsApp or everything, really connecting people actually, right? To an extent it's kind of quite phenomenal. And we were able to see this happen in the matter of just 20 years. So I do believe that AI in the next 20 years is going to really transform people's life in a very positive way, actually. That's my personal view about it.
Interesting. Aaron, you want to say something to that?
I was just thinking that on the way that how the human life is going to change. I think AI, as I said, AI has been around since a while and has been changing our life a lot. So I'm sure that most people are a subscriber of multiple TV channels, not channels, so the Netflix kind of the world and the alternatives, all these things. AI has been there already, but making all the recommendations and hooking us up on it, or the Facebooks or Instagram or the content. AI has been already there making recommendations. What would we be interested in watching or reading next? So AI has been shaping the humanity already. And without going into the elections, political things and how people were misguided with bad actors taking advantage of the AI. So it has been already around us. We just didn't wake up maybe to the point of talking about it until we have seen the generative AI and what it can do. Like it can talk to us like we talk to each other.
I'm a proponent that overall the greater good is unfolding, and I think that sometimes it's painful to get to it. I do in my own life right now. I'm a fan. I was a sci-fi kid, so this little device called Alexa. If I say that word right now, it'll respond. But between that and Google and the list goes on and on, I'm a fan of that. So I think that I've embraced that. As I said, in my small business, I leverage the technologies, and it's made me more efficient in a lot of different ways as a small team. And there are certain redundancies we don't need to repeat. So I definitely am an early adapter. However, I do want to talk about, it's interesting, UBI and giving humans a basic income because of the reduction of things that are happening. There were a group of Indians here in America who were awarded a grant for their land. So I think it's like 10 years ago. A number of American Indians were given money because of the rights to their land and so forth. So the government started paying them back. And ideally, it's a very good idea for some folks because they have regular income coming from the government. But one of the things that has done for a certain population is it's introduced the lack of the desire to do anything. So drugs and alcohol and complacency has gone up. Now, I'm not saying everybody, was affected by that, but certain systems where there's automatically money and you don't have to do anything creates a different kind of interaction with life. Anybody have to say anything about that at all?
I think you mentioned maybe not directly to what you just mentioned, Coach Ron. I'm just thinking about AI and the money, etc. Right? Like, I have 2 little kids as well, right? And recently I listened to I think interview of the Khan economy, I think with Bill Gates, right? Talking about Khan economy's integration of AI. And I think just for even like say when I grew, like if I'm grew up, I'm still growing. But first thing is more of that drive or say, hey, I want to do something with my life, right? Whether I have money or don't have money, do I need to take care of the basics? I don't know, it's hard, right? Because everyone starts from a different journey, different background. Like, there's a lot of luck in terms of where we come from, right? The education experience. But I think having that education experience, teaching about, hey, what's the world is about? What are opportunity out there? or not even just maybe the opportunity from, oh, I want to make money, I want to have a title, right? Just opportunity of, hey, what's the work, right? Like there's so many things out there, so many different disciplines, and having that good maybe foundational education background make people more curious, just about exploring about everything the world has to offer. Then I think the idea is that now if you have money, right, you might not be just sitting there drinking beer or consume other things, right? You just, hey, you know what, I still do the entertainment, but I want to learn, right? Maybe just go to university, take a college course, you learn something, you say, hey, maybe I can do something, right? I think that's the ideal goal. But for the point you mentioned, I'm hoping, right, for the generations younger or future, maybe having AI have a better way, more personalized training, like learning, teaching about what the website offer, will reduce that, over time. People say, hey, you know what, even I have all the UBIs, right? But there's still something to explore, right? Maybe more creative. But I think that probably that mentality, that drive, but not for just money's sake, but just for the curiosity's sake. Let's start young and start early in someone's career life. I think that's where AI could help, right? Now it's cheaper to educate more people.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you there, because that's what I was like. Nowadays, people work early on in life, they accumulate money, and then later when they have some money, then they say, okay, now I need to figure out, I can use some time to live a better life. I think that with the technology moving forward, and as Joe was pointing out, we can accelerate that true exploration, right? The discovery of what really makes you happy, right? And that's actually ultimately the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of doing something creative, is what makes human beings happy, actually, right? Ultimately. So I believe that there is definitely a potential for us to get there faster with AI, right? And I believe there are always, good actors and bad actors. That's not going to change. Right? There are always heroes and villains, right? So there'll be a lot of people who will want to misuse technology. There'll always be, there'll be AIs fighting AIs, right? Because AIs will be useful to hack into system, and then AIs will be used to protect your system, right? So all of that is going to go on, right? And I do believe that there'll be new industries that will get created thanks to AI, actually, and we'll find a lot of different kinds of jobs just showing up.
We always talk about a number of revolutions. The Industrial Revolution was one of the last one that we know. Now people say that rightfully that this is the next revolution that we are facing. So just talking about with the numbers, at the beginning of century, as far as I understand, I read that we were less than 2 billion people on Earth. Now today we are 8 billion. So what happened in the last 150 years was Industrial Revolution has happened. And we started to manufacture the goods and products faster, better, easier, cheaper. So all of a sudden, the population grew, but that growth was in hand. That growth was also needed, because at the same time, the business started to call us not people, consumers. So the more consumers of a product, a better, larger the business gets. So that was a self-fulfilling prophecy, or propelling itself, that more consumers of a product, bigger the enterprise wants to get bigger, so more consumers are needed. So the population growth was favoring that, but it reached to a level that now we are asking that, is this sustainable? Now, if you look at the old, I don't want to call old economy, because then I have to talk about new economy, but there's the economy. In the economy, we always produce a product and service, and that needs to be purchased by somebody. So the purchaser gives us the money, and this is how the deal turns. Now, with AI taking over a lot of jobs, potentially, like automation machinery did, what will happen to the consumer industry? So are we going to need the consumers for the products to be used so that the business gets richer? Is this going to be the path forward, or do we need that? Maybe we don't need that many consumers. So then what will happen? I want to stop there, because that thought can get scary.
Well, once again, kind of, this is a new concept. As you said before, it's been around, selections at Netflix, even, in the background running cities. A lot of things are already in place that are automated, leveraging, ML, AI, et cetera. However, talking about good actors and bad actors, Has anyone seen The Social Dilemma, the one that had to do a lot with Facebook, that Facebook leveraging AI and data on people? And so Vinay, you saw that. Aaron, have you seen that?
No, is it a documentary?
It came out a couple of years ago. It's on Netflix, and it's
Yes, a Netflix documentary. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
yeah. Jacques, you see that?
Yeah, I saw that.
So once again, interestingly enough, is the greater good, which I'm a, listen, I believe in the greater good, and because I'm blindly, I agree. I believe that ultimately this thing figures itself out no matter what it has to do, and ultimately that's what we do. However, the social dilemma and based on profiteering and greed, when that algorithm, its job is to keep people on a platform and engaged so they can sell ads and generate income, that algorithm has one goal. It's going to keep me intrigued by whatever information it can, whether it's true or false, to engage me, whether, on the politics side, oh my God, that's when I got off Facebook. But it's going to encapsulate me with all of the data points and how I interact to keep me engaged in that platform, which drives profit for platforms like that. And we see it, and we saw that. So the other side of profiteering, outside of whether it's good or bad, and how that plays, we already see that large corporations are geared toward profiteering, and it has nothing to do with helping people or not. And so that's one aspect of it, the greater good, the good actors, bad actors, but profit. Greed is an interesting blindness. And so I think that's certainly one side. Anybody have any words about that social dilemma, greed, and the use of this technology? And then, Shah, you touched on something earlier, governments and creating laws that actually have to do with setting up guidelines, because if an organization doesn't act responsibly on its own, clearly legislation has to be a part of that. So I'll stop right there. But any thoughts around this conversation?
I guess just maybe the current thinking right in my mind, like say AI, right? If they changes the job, right, reduce the job in the short term, maybe midterm, you're reducing the demand, right? The job loss will reduce demand, but it will increase supply because your production become easier, cheaper, but also will make the channel of sales channel easier, right? Like you say, your Facebook ads, right? You're reducing the friction, connecting increased supply to a shorter demand, smaller demand. That's going to create problem. But I think, to me, I'm thinking like the business from social dilemma, right? I think the company like Facebook and everything, right? They're initially doing something good, but then they have to make money, which makes sense, right? Everyone need to make money to sustain, right? But I think this is where I don't know if it will ever happen or ever go back, right? Like the business or culture in general, I think about, it's not a profit above all game anymore, right? I think there were old in centuries before, right? There are business where they set up with the intention, they understand it's a social good, but it's not social good. It's more like this is the society, or let's call it the people around the business need to be successful in order for the business to be successful, right? They coexist harmoniously, right? I think the business right now, in certain business, might not be harmoniously existing with the society as a whole because of the profit at all costs thing, right? But can they change their mind as a culture change? I don't know, but I think if we don't change that, population increase, right? Supply increase, demand will drop. I think that will be a bad outcome from the world economy or just society standpoint.
I agree with what just said, and when I said, I also want to add that sometimes I think that the AI is like it's childhood times. So we make jokes that the generative AI can hallucinate, and then we talk about is this a socially ethically correct thing to influence people, taking advantage of the AI, combining data from here and there. Think of a child. The child has an unlimited imagination that we always get impressed. I was thinking that why is that so? So in childhood dreams, many people will talk about that in their dreams they were able to fly, and then when they grow up, they never dream of flying. I think what is happening to us is going to happen to AI as well. When we are a child, we are at the beginning. We don't understand the constraints, the limitations, or the cause and consequences. of these things. So the physical world, yeah, we understand faster. So if something is hot, don't touch it, you will burn yourself. But if you harm people and eventually you will harm yourself because you harm your business, that takes a longer path. And because of that path, at the end, humanity created the governments, the rules, and the controls. Some people said that I don't want any government, I want to be free as a bird, but that was a catastrophe. That's why we ended up coming up with some rules and regulations. I think with the AI, we are just at the early childhood time. So we just don't understand yet what the consequences are going to be.
And with Moore's law, clearly the rate that technology is rapidly advancing versus the cellular species we are, this thing's happening really fast. So it's going to be at our stage of awareness in a much shorter amount of time, which is quite interesting. In fact, Erdem, with you having worked in this industry for a long time, looking at Moore's law and just kind of the level, that it's advancing, Ray Kurzweil, the singularity is near, you probably have heard of that, but, he had predicted somewhere around 2035, 2040 or so, we'd have fully autonomous beings and creatures. Sounds very sci-fi, but, whether that's right or wrong, robotics and AI and supercomputing, these are all the things that we're on the precipice of it. So a lot of interesting things happen. Any thoughts around that at all?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Not far long ago, when I heard that the servers, the typical server will have 24 core CPU cores in it, that was impressive. Oh my God, look at the power now we can get to. Now we are talking about almost there, having 24 CPU cores in our laptop. And next we will have it on our iPhones or whatnot, Google phones. What is happening, what is changing is still everything is still silicon-based, so that has a limitation. The only way to expand is to increase the number of cores, and that requires changing a little bit of the algorithms. And then there is on the horizon, people talk about the quantum computing. So let me give an example of what I heard about quantum computing. So today we exchange data, secretive data, all over the internet. So the only reason that it is not getting stolen is it is encrypted. And to decrypt it will require way too much computing and too long time. And by the time that is decrypted, and it is possible to decrypt, and it will lose its value because it will take hundreds of years. Now, with the quantum computing, and that could take in minutes. Now, if that happens, all of a sudden, the way we communicate, the encryption algorithm, everything has to change as well. This is coming at let's put it on the horizon. I don't know when it will be part of our life. But on the amount of computing power is increasing exponentially, and the price per compute is decreasing exponentially in the reverse order, of course. That democratizes the ability to use these systems, take advantage of all these things. And with all the abstractions, software abstractions that are being put on these things, it is getting easier and easier to get into the game. When AI start to become hot, the latest thoughts, it was hot before, then it cooled down, but now the latest thought, everybody was talking about, well, you have to have a PhD. If you don't have a PhD, you don't understand what is going on. I think the bar is getting lower and lower. Now next we will question, do you need a university degree to do that? Do you even need a Mac or computer degree to do this? Because the level of abstraction that we are putting it is becoming more natural, and the compute power behind it is way too much, and it is up to anyone to imagine what could happen next. And you talk about the singularity. It all comes to the point that it's a little bit of philosophical. It's impossible not to get philosophical at this point, because it bears the question that who we are, what we are, so why do we exist? What is the meaning of existence? So if you think of these things, because we have a conscious brain, we understand our limitations, physics, environment, emotions, things around us. And everything is happening in our brain, which inspired development of the neural networks, which is the core of the AI engine, which is in generative algorithms everywhere. It is used the same thing. If our brain is using electricity, chemicals and electricity to speak with each other, the neurons to talk to each other, how far we are building the same thing on the computer? And can I put my conscience on a computer? And what would it look like? and how separate my conscience from my body is. And all these things are going to be weird, weird to us, but not weird to the coming generations. The life we know of on Earth is all carbon-based. But if it is possible to upload the conscience to computer, then I can put that logic on a robot. And then what is the meaning of being carbon-based? So there's a lot of more discussion, sci-fi topics we can talk about here.
You're touching on my sci-fi nature here. And I think I certainly resonate with that, because I think that, humans, I believe the real essence is our consciousness now. What's to say who's conscious or what's conscious, but consciousness is the essence. Maybe 5+ years ago, I saw a clip on scientists that were working on diodes in the brain, where they were using fiber optics to go in the brain, and they were able to turn light on in certain areas and off with a switch in lab rats. And they were inducing seizures and then turning certain areas of the brain on off to stop the body from, convulsing, and it worked really well. Now, one of the questions that came up was, when you're in the brain with the fiber optics recording these interactions and turning that information on and off, can you also record the brain activity? And they said, yes. And can you play back the brain activity? And they said, yes. So now, if one can record and play back brain activity, can one record consciousness? That's a different story. And so without a doubt, I think that plays into something else, where now if you apply that to robotics with titanium, catapulting those things through space for 100 years is now possible, as opposed to this carbon thing that would never make it through. So I'm actually excited about that possibility, because I think that expands our abilities to do lots of different things. Space Odyssey 2001, HAL, the supercomputer, I thought that was brilliant. And, there's always a carbon character there, but is carbon necessary to achieve our objective? And that, once again, that's a philosophical and ethical question. As we're coming into the close here, I have 2 more questions. Vinay, what are some of the things you see with cloud-based processing as it relates to AI as we look forward? What are some of the possibilities, and Bard being one of them, but any thoughts around that at all?
I think it's a little bit scary, because typically when you have technology that is using data that's dynamically changing, right, it needs to learn its limitations, right? So that's why I think there was a reason why ChatGPT was kept contained, right? Because they didn't know the limitation. Now Google Bard is completely wild out there, so we'll have to learn about the limitation that needs to be put there. But having said that, the generative AI technology, the way we look at it, has a lot of application areas where we can go. Images, videos, voice, real life translation. Right, we can have people talk to each other at a much more convenient and fast way. Actually, so I do believe that the explosion of applications with generative AI is going to happen very fast, because these APIs need to be made available. Today, these APIs are still constrained to bigger corporations, right? And I think that's where I believe that the cloud and all these big corporations will have to put in more effort to make those APIs more verticalized, right? More segment-based. APIs for the finance industry, APIs for the retail industry, APIs for all these various industries where they can plug into real-time data and make decisions. So, that's what I see happening.
So how does data play into what you just said?
Yeah, I think the Gen AI, right? I was just reading there was a course published by what's that, Andrew Ng, right? The Deep AI. So I think that's always the thing. Like for us, we can't use ChatGPT in Amazon, right? We have to roll our own AI. Kind of looking into like how do you tune? Well, you don't train the model from the base, right? You get a ready-made model, you do the fine-tuning, you feed your own data, then you can answer questions intelligently about your own things, right? I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like when I was saying, building applications that's specific using the data that you've supplied for a particular use case. And I think on the cloud side, where it gets interesting, it's I think it's good. We have all the big cloud, at least you have 3 cloud players fighting for this space, right? So it's not like one person owns everything. So that's a good thing. And hopefully that will drive the price down or keep the price at a certain level and open up more access to people. And just one last thing on interesting about, when Microsoft and come up with ChatGPT, right? Or they working with ChatGPT with integrated into the Bing, Google come with the bar. People was asking like, what's Amazon going to do? Is Amazon going to essentially flip over, right? Because they don't have any AI play. But I always saw like, okay, Amazon wasn't in the space of building user-facing AI product, right? Their strength is on the backend, right? Their strength is providing the API, providing the infrastructure for things, right? And I think that's what they did, it seems like, because the major thing that come out is all the backend AI chips and different services to help you to build your own AI product in the cloud, which in turn will drive the revenue, right? So I think that's interesting, and kind of what you mentioned, right? The cloud stuff. It'll be interesting to see how people utilize this to build their own product, train their own data, and how that will benefit the society, right?
Adam, any thoughts on that before I ask the last question?
The core thing between for the generative algorithms are, as Java was talking about, that these things are trained on enormous amount of data, and then continue to be trained at the last layers of the AI engine to fit your purposes. Now, it comes to the point that on which data this thing was trained and how constrained do you want to be. One extreme is let's put all the raw data without any control. And there's a risk that there are bad data. Bad data is bad intentional documentation or information is out there that can influence AI as well. But if we constrain it, then we limit its capability to learn and become more intelligent or get closer to being sentient. So I think the race is out there and the results to be seen. I still think that this is a childhood time of AI, so it's like a small kid, and the thing that we learn to do the right thing is because of our social education, family education, or our experience in life. We see the hurtful things and good things that are happening that shapes our behavior and thinking, and that is going to happen for AI too. But then starting question is, I can take a large language model and choose to use really biased data, and I can create the worst AI nightmare of the humanity, and as opposed to doing the opposite. I think it will require a lot of conscious thinking to do the right thing, and if doing the right thing it will cost the profits, I think that will be on the shoulders of the decision makers to accept that doing the right thing should come before making the profits.
I actually think that's powerful. I saw Oppenheimer recently. Anybody see that movie yet? Really educational movie. Really, I didn't, historical. I didn't know the history of Oppenheimer and also his relationships, and also he spent his life trying to fight against creation of that type of technology. And, so it's a very interesting idea. And I think that kind of in what you just said, Aaron, sometimes we have to do something that we regret in order to do something that we know is better, because the human species tends to learn by atrocities for some reason. But maybe atrocities are a way to never forget, which is part of what this is. My final question on a positive note is, what's one thing each of you can say in order to inspire someone who may be listening to this, inspire them to embrace this technology if they fear that their job's going to be replaced, if they're a student thinking, hey, I want to get into this, what's one thing you can say to inspire someone to move towards this in a positive way, starting with Eric?
Okay, so I will put the inspiration for the people into 2 categories, or maybe 3 categories for the enterprises. So the first category is the people who wants to build AI tools or AI systems. The second one is people who wants to take advantage of it or use them to their advantage to make their business better. And maybe the third one is about the enterprises, what they can do the general business world, what they can do about it. So in the first category, for students or who want to be students, or there's no certain age to stop learning, so it's age independent. To get into space, I would say that requires a lot of mathematical thinking and a lot of reading and learning, and there are enormous amount of courses out there. It's easy to get lost and spend a lot of time and spinning the wheels. My advice to them would be, what is your end goal? What do you want to do? So if you want to be a research scientist on this edge case that not much people are working about, by all means, go do your PhD. That's a fantastic space. But if your intention is to get to a job and do some cool stuff, pick your battles, because your lifetime is not enough to learn everything. Now, for the people who wants to take advantage of it and use it, and I would say that follow the literature and look around what is happening and keep trying things and give it a try. Can I do this? What would happen if I do that? It's all about having an open mind, and it doesn't require to have a degree to use AI. Any average consumer can use and take advantage of AI. You are only limited by the imagination of thinking and what you can do with it. And for the enterprise businesses, they have to rethink their business the way they do. So yeah, basically they develop services or products and they bring them to the market, sell to consumers, and manage the whole chain. But then there are millions of different areas where they can take advantage of AI to make their business better, to achieve incremental success. But also they have to be cautious that it's not a buzzword that for the sake of using AI and let's use it without understanding what is going on, because it can harm their business as well. They have to be really conscious and thinking that on what they want to improve, decide on that first. And then what can I do? Answer that question. And the third one, can AI help? So that is the only third question that they should be asking.
I think, Erdem was very specific, which was very nice. My recommendation to anyone and everyone actually would be to really look for opportunities where you can be, the first person in your specific industry to adopt AI. And there'll be a lot of opportunities showing up because every industry is now getting ready to experiment with it. So if you're in high tech, you'll have AI being applied to, helping debug code or even, helping create better documentation. Actually, so in fact, there are enterprises that they're creating internal projects to try out AI technology. So I think you should definitely look for doing that. If you're in, let's say, product management and business analytics, you should definitely look at what kind of marketing automation is available out there and be the first to adopt that. That will be interesting. If you're in sales, actually, it will be very nice for you to kind of figure out those new AI technologies where you can predict, consumer behavior, or even, do a better job of applying AI. So this is all in the high-tech industry. But even in other industries, actually, what you'll start seeing is there are a lot of new startups which will offer you products which are AI enabled that will help solve your problem. So I would highly recommend that instead of running away from it, you run to it and run fast so that, you'll have that early mover advantage. Right? That is what I'll recommend.
Yeah, no, I agree. Definitely agree with both what Erdem said and Vinay said. I think I like where you mentioned, right? Don't run away from it, right? Towards it, right? You can't outrun the problem. It's going to come find you anyway. So I think this applies to the, like you mentioned, right, for the audience, but even for myself, like for me to learn this, right, because I've been in the industry, right, this is new and not new at the same time, but I'm definitely not an expert in this area. But I think for me, it's just, find the problem, right, find the problem that I have and do a project, right, use AI, use technology to solve it, right. So this will help me to learn, really understand how it works, how it can be applied to my industry. And I think back to the original thing, it's end of the day, we're helping a customer, right? The customer could be my peers, my friend, the actual paying customer, right? Figure out what's their job to be done, right? The job to be done framework, right? What's their job? How can I use AI, a combination of AI or existing process to actually help them to solve the problems, right? Listen to them, talk to them. And I think that will, that's probably will never go away. Just be curious about your customer problems. I think lastly, just be curious, not just about technology, right? Technology you need to learn, but it's more about learning maybe other stuff, right? Curious about the economy, history, social science. All those things will help you to have a better understanding of what problem that should be solved using AI.
I think those are all good. And let me just chip in. One of the things we're doing at GHN is, helping people learn how to use it for prospecting. Who are the thought leaders in these companies? Who are the decision makers? And, how do you contact them? Take it back over LinkedIn. How do you perfect your resume with that? Once you start off with a really good resume, you got to start off with a good resume in order to perfect it. How do you blend that job description and resume in order to create a better one? What kinds of questions can I ask in an interview if I take this job description, put it in? How do I come up with really good questions based on my resume, the job description, and maybe the hiring manager's profile? So there's a lot of amazing things you can do with this technology. That's all called prompting. Prompting is fairly easy, but it also takes practice. Garbage in, garbage out. Based on what's been said here, AI is almost like a little child. If you ask it something simple, it will give you whatever type of response. The more specific your questions are, the more specific your answers. I think that everyone has said something very useful here. Don't be afraid of it. Move towards it. And it's actually free right now. So what a great opportunity to jump in, figure out how to play with it, to make our lives better with what it is. And as early adopters to this technology, this is the time to figure out how to be a thought leader with it. And it will determine whether you're an AI-enabled person or a non-AI-enabled person. And you don't have to have a microprocessor to be an AI-enabled person. So, Ariel, I appreciate you, Vinay. I appreciate you, Jacques. I appreciate you. And I really, really do. Thank you so much for engaging in a conversation. And I'm going to have to sign off because I'm running late for a meeting. You guys have any final thoughts before I sign off? Because I got to jump.
Thank you, Coach Ron. Have a great weekend.
Once again, Coach Ron Nash, JSA Global, Get Hired Now Career Academy. I'm here to invite you to join our podcast. It's on all the major platforms. I will continue inviting thought leaders, tech professionals out of the Silicon Valley who know where things are going. My aim is really to dispel any myths, talk about the facts versus fiction. Join us each week for our podcast. Also, let us know what your thoughts are. If there's any other topics you want to hear about, any questions, any concerns, etc. Thank you so much for tuning in.